For over 70 years, the US-Japan alliance was a pillar of global stability, a partnership that anchored American power in the Pacific and provided Japan with a crucial security umbrella. This alliance was not just a military arrangement, but a symbol of trust and shared purpose between two nations that had once been adversaries. It propelled Japan's economic rise, fueling decades of innovation and prosperity. American markets opened to Japanese goods, and Japanese technology transformed industries worldwide, creating a powerful synergy that benefited both nations. The alliance became the bedrock of Asia-Pacific peace and prosperity, fostering stability that allowed the region to flourish and become a global economic powerhouse. But on August 23, 2025, that foundation cracked, sending shockwaves through both capitals and beyond. The return of Donald Trump brought an intensified America First doctrine, transforming the alliance from a partnership of shared values to a transactional relationship. Suddenly, every agreement was up for renegotiation, and every commitment was questioned. Decades of mutual trust and intricate cooperation suddenly seemed to count for little, as suspicion and uncertainty replaced the old sense of reliability. The language of partnership was replaced by cold calculations of trade deficits and nationalistic demands, with economic friction overshadowing diplomatic ties. Tokyo's political establishment was jolted, forced to reassess its most important relationship and confront the possibility of a future without guaranteed American support. This isn't a simple disagreement, it's a profound ideological divergence, a clash of visions for the future of the international order. Japan, long a champion of the liberal international order, now faces a US administration that sees alliances as burdens rather than assets, prioritizing short-term gains over long-term stability. The very basis of the alliance is in question: partnership of equals or hierarchy dictated by American priorities? The answer is no longer clear. Japanese leaders, having invested immense political capital in the alliance, now find themselves treated as economic competitors, their loyalty and sacrifices seemingly forgotten. The abruptness and severity of this shift have left Japan isolated and exposed, facing an uncertain world with fewer guarantees and more risks. The once unshakable bond is revealed as fragile, its future hanging in the balance as both nations reconsider their roles. Japan must now contemplate a future without the steadfast support of the United States, weighing new alliances and strategies in a rapidly changing world. The era of certainty is over. A new unpredictable chapter has begun for both nations and for the world. The crisis erupted with sweeping tariffs, 25% slapped on Japanese cars, a move that sent shockwaves through the global auto industry and immediately raised prices for American consumers and businesses alike. Another 15% was imposed on Japanese electronics, by order of President Trump, targeting everything from televisions to smartphones and threatening to disrupt the flow of high-tech goods that Americans had come to rely on. These weren't targeted measures, they were blunt instruments, sweeping in scope and designed to slash the US trade deficit, regardless of the collateral damage to businesses on both sides of the Pacific. The official justification was national security, a claim Tokyo found not only unconvincing but almost insulting, given decades of close alliance and cooperation. The economic impact was immediate and severe. The yen plunged to multi-year lows, the Nikkei tumbled in a matter of hours, and Japan's export-driven economy was hit at its very core, with factories slowing production and goods piling up at ports, unable to find buyers. Supply chains built over decades, intricate networks connecting Japan to the world, were suddenly thrown into chaos, leaving workers and managers scrambling for solutions. Japanese corporations now see the US as volatile and risky, and are rapidly shifting investments, factories, and even research centers to Southeast Asia and Europe, seeking stability and new markets. The interdependence that once bound the two nations, built on decades of trust and shared prosperity, is being systematically dismantled, piece by piece. Unlike past disputes, this trade war is fueled by populist rhetoric and political theater, not careful negotiation or long-term strategy. Tokyo finds no path to resolution. Demands from Washington are vague, shifting, and seem more focused on grabbing headlines than on crafting sustainable policy or compromise. The tariff shockwave is more than just a policy. It's a declaration that the old rules of global trade no longer apply, and that uncertainty is the new normal. A new fragmented economic reality has arrived, forcing nations and companies alike to rethink their place in a rapidly changing world. With Washington unyielding, Japan is formulating its own response. Symbolic measures, like restricting bluefin tuna exports, send a message, but the real leverage lies in Japan's $1.1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds. Tokyo is openly debating a gradual sell-off, rattling global markets. Such a move would raise U.S. interest rates and borrowing costs, but also hurt Japan. Yet the calculus is shifting. The long-term threat of American protectionism now outweighs short-term risks. Japan's goal: demonstrate resolve and create leverage, not trigger a crisis. Simultaneously, Japan is accelerating efforts to build economic frameworks excluding the U.S., leading the CPTPP and inviting new members. New supply chains and alliances are forming. Japan is no longer waiting for America to lead, it's building a world without it. No country stands to gain more from the US-Japan rift than China. The alliance once contained Chinese ambitions. Now, a strategic vacuum is emerging. Beijing is moving swiftly, presenting itself as a stable, pragmatic partner. Chinese leaders are offering Japan favorable trade terms and Belt and Road partnerships, emphasizing shared interests. For Japan, the economic logic is compelling. China is already its largest trading partner. Tokyo is trying to balance economic engagement with China without becoming strategically dependent. Signs of closer coordination on trade and climate are emerging. A formal military alliance is unlikely, but a de facto economic bloc is taking shape. The Asia-Pacific is shifting from a US-led system to a complex interplay of American, Chinese, and Japanese spheres. The dragon's shadow looms larger than ever. The region's geopolitical landscape is fundamentally changing. The US-Japan rift is China's strategic opening. The Trump administration's trade war is accelerating the decline of US influence in the Asia-Pacific. Once seen as a stabilizing force, America's economic aggression is now pushing regional partners to reconsider their alliances and long-term strategies. By alienating its key ally, the US is dismantling its own strategic architecture, undermining decades of careful relationship building that once anchored its leadership in the region. Security guarantees are undermined by economic hostility, forcing allies to question American reliability. The trust that underpins military cooperation is eroding, replaced by growing uncertainty and doubt. Other US allies, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, are watching with alarm, considering their own hedges. They are quietly exploring new partnerships and diversifying their diplomatic options to protect their interests. America's credibility is eroding, not from outside threats but from its own actions. The perception of US unpredictability is spreading, fueling skepticism and even resentment among former supporters. The alliance network, once America's greatest asset, is weakening. The sense of unity that defined past decades is giving way to fragmentation and hesitation. US military bases in Japan, vital for regional power projection, now face operational friction as goodwill evaporates. Local opposition is growing and logistical cooperation is no longer guaranteed. Japan may not demand immediate withdrawal, but new restrictions and reduced cooperation are likely. The future of joint operations is increasingly uncertain. America's strategic position depends on trust, not just military might. Without mutual confidence, even the strongest alliances can falter. By waging economic war on friends, Washington is burning through decades of political capital. The damage to relationships may outlast any short-term gains. Influence is about leadership, not just strength. True power comes from the ability to inspire and unite, not simply to coerce. The US is becoming more isolated, not more respected. Its absence from key discussions is noticed, and its voice carries less weight. In putting America first, the administration risks making America alone. The cost of isolation may be far greater than anticipated. The Pacific is becoming less American by the day, as regional powers fill the vacuum and reshape the balance of influence for a new era. The US-Japan crisis is sending shockwaves worldwide, forcing countries to rethink alliances. For Europe, it's a wake-up call, reinforcing the push for strategic autonomy and a more independent foreign policy. Middle powers like India, Brazil, and South Africa see new opportunities in a more fluid world. The G7 looks divided. Forums like the G20 and BRICS are rising. The old alliance model, shared values, long-term commitments, is giving way to transactional, interest-driven partnerships. International institutions are weakened as nations act unilaterally. Without strong alliances, the world is more prone to conflict and less able to tackle collective challenges. America's global leadership, once amplified by alliances, is now brittle and one-dimensional. The trust that underpinned alliances is easily squandered. The ripple effects of this dispute could reshape the global order for decades. The trade war's economic damage cuts both ways. Tariffs on Japanese cars and parts have raised prices for American consumers and hurt U.S. automakers. Japanese factories in the U.S. are rethinking investments, putting thousands of jobs at risk. The electronics market is hit too, higher prices for laptops, phones, and more. For a nation already battling inflation, tariffs add fuel to the fire. The promised manufacturing renaissance hasn't materialized. Instead, supply chains are disrupted and costs climb. Japan's threat to sell U.S. treasuries could weaken the dollar's global dominance. If other creditors follow, America's financial power is at risk. The U.S. is harming itself by attacking a key partner. The pursuit of a symbolic trade victory is leading to real economic loss. This is a self-inflicted wound of historic proportions. We stand at the edge of a new era in the Asia-Pacific. The U.S.-Japan alliance, once the region's anchor, is crumbling. The post-American Pacific is arriving sooner than anyone expected. America's role as undisputed guarantor of regional security is ending, leaving a power vacuum. Japan, forced out from under the U.S. umbrella, must become a more normal nation, militarily and diplomatically. Japanese rearmament, once unthinkable, is now a real possibility. For the U.S., managing China's rise without Japan is far harder. The risk of miscalculation and conflict in flashpoints like Taiwan is rising. The stable equilibrium is gone, replaced by a volatile contest for influence. The trade war's legacy may be the erosion of American power and a more dangerous, unpredictable world.